There is a hard truth about narcissists that most people never really notice. Once you see it clearly, their behavior starts to look very different. Behind the strong confidence that seems impossible to shake, behind the easy charm that can pull people in so fast, and behind the heavy sense of superiority that fills the room, there is often a quiet pain that never fully leaves them. Many people think narcissists feel great about themselves all the time. They assume these people enjoy hurting others and move through life untouched by guilt, emptiness, or fear. But the deeper reality is far more complex. The narcissist is not as untouchable as they work so hard to appear. In many ways, they are some of the most emotionally troubled people you may ever meet. Their suffering stays hidden so well that even people close to them often miss it. And that is what makes it dangerous. If you only look at the outside, you will believe the mask. If you look deeper, the whole picture changes. Stay with this, because what comes next explains a lot of behavior that usually feels confusing, cold, or cruel. The more you understand this pattern, the harder it becomes to be fooled by surface confidence. And once you see the hidden wound beneath the performance, you start to recognize that a lot of what looks like power is actually defense, and a lot of what looks like pride is often pain wearing expensive clothes and a perfect smile. One of the clearest hidden signs is a deep feeling of emptiness that never fully goes away. From the outside, narcissists can look full of self-belief. They may seem proud, certain, polished, and completely sure of who they are. But inside, there is often a hollow place where a steady sense of self should be. This emptiness is not just a bad mood. It is not something that shows up only on difficult days. It stays with them for long stretches of life. They feel it in silence. They feel it when attention moves away. They feel it when no one is praising them, admiring them, or reflecting back the image they want the world to see. And because this feeling is so unbearable, they spend huge parts of life trying to escape it through other people. They chase attention because without it they start to feel invisible. They seek status because it gives temporary relief. They demand admiration because the second it fades, they are pushed back toward the void they keep trying to outrun. That is why peace is often so hard for them. Stillness does not feel restful. Solitude does not feel healing. Quiet becomes a mirror, and that mirror reflects the exact emptiness they are trying not to face. Watch closely, and you may notice how often they create noise, drama, motion, or conflict just to avoid sitting alone with themselves. What looks like endless drive is sometimes just panic in motion, and that changes everything. This is why many narcissists seem unable to rest in a simple, calm moment. Silence can feel like pressure. A quiet room can feel threatening. They may talk too much, move too fast, start new conflicts, chase new goals, or jump into fresh relationships not because they are truly fulfilled by these things, but because they are terrified of what happens when nothing is there to distract them. Without the mask, without the audience, without the performance, they are left alone with a self that does not feel solid enough to hold them. That is a painful place to live from. And most people around them do not understand what they are seeing. They think they are watching ambition, confidence, or passion. Sometimes they are really watching escape. Here is what many people miss. When a person cannot stand still with themselves, it usually means something inside feels unsafe. Narcissists often fill empty spaces with big claims, dramatic stories, constant plans, and emotional storms. It keeps the inner emptiness from getting too loud, but only for a while. The relief never lasts, and that is the problem. Every outside source of comfort fades, every compliment wears off, every victory grows old, every admirer becomes normal. Then the emptiness returns, and the chase begins again. If you have ever wondered why someone with so much praise still seems restless, demanding, or impossible to satisfy, this is part of the answer. They are not only seeking more, they are running from less. And the less they fear most is the feeling that, underneath everything, there may be nothing real there at all. That fear stays hidden, but it drives far more than people realize. Another hidden sign is constant dissatisfaction with everything they have. To other people, this can look like high standards, big dreams, or strong ambition. It may even look admirable at first, but under that polished surface is often a painful inability to feel lasting fulfillment. The moment they get what they wanted, the feeling starts to fade. A new relationship that once felt perfect suddenly becomes disappointing. An achievement that seemed huge loses meaning almost overnight. A person they praised yesterday begins to look ordinary today. It is easy to think life keeps failing them, but that is not the real issue. The deeper problem is that their inner world cannot hold satisfaction for very long. Real fulfillment usually grows from emotional security, inner stability, and a grounded sense of self. Narcissists often lack those foundations, so they remain trapped in a state of wanting more. More praise, more proof, more success, more attention, more signs that they matter. Yet nothing fully settles the hunger. No matter how much they receive, it rarely feels enough. This creates a hidden suffering that many people mistake for drive. From the outside, it can look like hunger for success. On the inside, it feels more like endless thirst. They reach goals and still feel empty. They enter new love stories and still feel empty. They collect approval and still feel empty. Instead of asking why nothing lasts, they often blame the world around them. They tell themselves the next win will finally do it. The next person will finally do it. The next season of life will finally do it. But it never does. And if this is making sense, keep listening, because it gets even deeper. The reason it never lasts is simple and tragic. The wound is inside, but they keep searching outside. When fulfillment depends on other people constantly feeding your image, peace becomes almost impossible. The outside world can give stimulation, praise, and temporary relief, but it cannot repair an inner split that was never healed. That is why the cycle repeats so often. They get something they wanted, feel a quick rush, then drop back into dissatisfaction when the shine fades. Soon they are restless again. Soon they are disappointed again. Soon they are looking for someone else to blame or some new thing to chase. This pattern can make them seem impossible to please. It can make partners feel used, friends feel drained, and family members feel like nothing they do is ever enough. That is because, in a deep sense, it is not enough. Not because people failed them, but because no amount of outside reward can fill a wound that has no true connection to the outside world. This also explains why some narcissists seem to ruin good things right after getting them. Satisfaction feels unfamiliar, stability feels empty, calm feels flat. They may stir conflict because conflict creates intensity, and intensity feels more alive than peace. For a moment, drama can cover inner deadness. For a moment, admiration can soften self-doubt. For a moment, control can quiet fear. But then, reality returns, and when it does, they are left with the same ache they had before. So the hunger grows again, not because they are simply greedy in the shallow sense people imagine, but because something deep inside them cannot stay nourished for long. That is one of the saddest parts of the pattern. They keep reaching, but the feeling they want keeps slipping through their hands. A deeper sign is the non-stop effort it takes to protect a false version of themselves. Most narcissists build an image that is stronger, smarter, more successful, more attractive, more important, and more special than they truly feel inside. This image is not just a social habit. It becomes a whole structure they live through, and keeping that structure in place takes energy every single day. Imagine living as if you are always on stage. Imagine never feeling safe enough to step out of character. Imagine carrying the fear that if people saw the real you, everything could fall apart. That pressure is exhausting. It is one reason narcissists can seem so tense, reactive, or strangely watchful even during small moments. They pay very close attention to how others see them. They notice changes in tone. They replay conversations after they end. They scan for signs of disrespect, doubt, or loss of status. They do not want to be fully known, because being fully known means being fully seen, and being fully seen may force them to face parts of themselves they have spent years avoiding. This is why even minor criticism can hit them with unusual force. To other people, it may look like a small comment. To them, it can feel like a threat to the very structure keeping them together. So they react hard, sometimes with anger, sometimes with cold distance, sometimes with mockery, blame, or control. It is not just ego in the simple sense. It is defense at the level of identity. And once you understand that, their extreme reactions start to make more psychological sense, even if they still cause real harm. What looks like arrogance is often covering something fragile. Their grand style is not always proof that they truly feel above everyone else. Many times, it is a desperate answer to the unbearable feeling of being ordinary, flawed, or unimportant. Their image must stay inflated because their inner self does not feel stable enough on its own. That is why a blow to their image can feel so severe. If someone points out their weakness, questions their story, refuses to admire them, or sees through the performance, it can feel far bigger than the moment itself. It can feel like collapse. The false self is not just a costume. For many narcissists, it becomes the only self they know how to protect. So when that image cracks, panic rushes in. That panic may show up as rage, cruelty, contempt, or sudden withdrawal. People around them often think, why are they reacting like this over something so small? But to the narcissist, it is not small. It touches the deepest fear beneath the entire personality structure. If the image dies, what is left? That question stays mostly hidden, but it shapes so much of their behavior. And this is why they may seem obsessed with control. Control helps keep the image stable. Control helps manage what others see. Control helps reduce the risk of shame. But it comes at a high cost. It keeps relationships shallow. It creates fear in other people. And it leaves the narcissist trapped inside a role they can never fully relax out of. That kind of life may look powerful from the outside, but inside it is tense, brittle, and always one challenge away from emotional chaos. That is not freedom. That is survival dressed up as superiority. Another hidden sign is a deep fear of becoming irrelevant. Beneath the confidence and the constant need to look exceptional, many narcissists carry a haunting fear of being forgotten, overlooked, replaced, or reduced to ordinary life. For most people, the idea of being average may sting a little, but it is manageable. For the narcissist, it can feel unbearable. Their identity depends on feeling special, chosen, admired, and above the crowd. So the thought of becoming unremarkable can feel like a kind of psychological death. This helps explain why they struggle so much when someone else gets praise, especially in front of them. Another person's success may not feel neutral. It may feel like a personal loss. A compliment directed at someone else can feel like something stolen from them. A rising younger person can feel like a threat, not just a new face. That is why some narcissists undermine others, compete when no competition exists, or become strangely tense when the spotlight moves away. They may not be reacting to the other person alone. They may be reacting to the fear that their own importance is fading. This fear can shape everything from friendships to romance to work life. They may need constant proof that they still matter. They may provoke reactions just to feel impact. They may chase attention in ways that seem dramatic or unnecessary, but behind it is often a dark question they cannot tolerate. What if I am no longer special? Stay with this, because this fear becomes even sharper with age, and that is where many hidden patterns begin to intensify. As time passes, the things many narcissists once relied on for validation often begin to shift. Beauty changes, status changes, social influence moves. Positions of power become less secure. Attention that once came naturally may start flowing toward younger, newer, or more exciting people. For many people, aging brings reflection and acceptance. For narcissists, it can bring panic, bitterness, or control. The outer sources that once helped hold their image together do not feel as reliable anymore. And when those supports weaken, the pain they have spent years avoiding starts getting louder. Some become more controlling as they age, some grow suspicious, some become deeply envious, some seem cold one day and explosive the next. On the surface, it may look like moodiness or difficult personality. Underneath, they may be facing the terrifying truth that admiration is harder to secure than it once was. The world is moving on. Their old methods do not work the same way. They see others rising and feel threatened instead of proud. They feel their influence shrinking and respond with panic instead of peace. They may become obsessed with proving they still matter. And if people around them do not understand this fear, the behavior can seem random or cruel, but there is usually a thread running through it. If they are not extraordinary, then who are they? If they are not the center, then what holds them together? That fear can make them more rigid, more demanding, and less able to tolerate the success or happiness of others. It is painful to watch and often painful to live with, because deep down, they are not only afraid of losing attention, they are afraid of disappearing inside themselves. The deepest sign of all may be their inability to experience real emotional closeness. Many narcissists have people around them. They may have partners, children, loyal friends, followers, or admirers. From the outside, it can look like they are surrounded by love, but being surrounded by people is not the same as being emotionally connected. Real intimacy requires vulnerability. It asks for honesty, trust, softness, and the willingness to reveal fear, shame, weakness, and need. For the narcissist, that can feel almost impossible. Letting another person see those hidden parts feels dangerous. Exposure feels risky. Vulnerability feels like loss of control. So they keep the deepest parts of themselves locked away. They may share stories. They may reveal selected details. They may appear open in dramatic or polished ways. But true emotional openness is something very different, and that is often where the door stays closed. Because of this, many narcissists live with a hidden loneliness that no amount of attention can cure. Even when people love them, the loneliness remains. Even when people support them, the distance remains. Even when they are admired, something inside still feels untouched. This is the tragedy most people do not see. They reach for connection, but they do it through control, image, possession, and admiration, instead of through honesty and emotional risk. They may confuse being wanted with being loved. They may confuse being obeyed with being valued. They may confuse being needed with being known. But none of those things create real intimacy. And without real intimacy, the loneliness stays alive under everything. That hidden isolation is one of the deepest pains in the narcissistic pattern. Because vulnerability feels so unsafe to them, they often search for closeness in ways that never truly create it. They may try to make other people depend on them. They may seek admiration nonstop. They may push for control in the name of love. They may want loyalty without openness, praise without honesty, closeness without risk. But real connection cannot grow in a space where one person must always hide. So even their closest relationships often leave them feeling strangely empty. And when those relationships start breaking down, many narcissists do not see the deeper cause. They blame the partner, they blame friends, they blame family, they blame timing, stress, betrayal, or bad luck. Rarely do they stop and ask whether the same wall exists wherever they go. That wall is the emotional barrier inside them. It protects them from shame, but it also blocks love. It protects them from exposure, but it also blocks healing. And this is why their relationships can feel so confusing to others. At times they seem intense, attached, and desperate for closeness. Then suddenly they turn cold, defensive, cruel, or distant the moment true emotional honesty is required. They may want love very badly, but the path to real love asks for something they fear most: being fully seen. That is the paradox at the center of it all. They are hungry for connection, yet built to defend against it. They move toward intimacy, then destroy the very openness it needs to survive. If you have ever felt pulled close and pushed away by someone like this, that pattern is not in your imagination. It is often the emotional system of the narcissist protecting itself from the medicine it actually needs. And that is what makes this pattern so heartbreaking. What they truly need is often the very thing their defenses refuse to allow. Real love asks a person to be known, not just admired. It asks them to be imperfect in front of someone safe. It asks for truth over image, humility over performance, and presence over control. But for the narcissist, that kind of openness can feel unbearable. Instead of feeling safe, it feels humiliating. Instead of feeling healing, it feels dangerous. So they stay just outside the kind of closeness they secretly long for. They keep reaching toward love while also blocking it at every step. They mistake attention for care. They mistake possession for partnership. They mistake intensity for intimacy. And when those illusions fail, they often feel abandoned by life itself, without fully understanding how much of the distance came from inside. None of this excuses the harm they can cause. The damage is real. The manipulation is real. The confusion they create in others is real. But understanding the pain beneath the pattern helps explain why the behavior keeps repeating. The narcissist is not simply a person who thinks too highly of themselves. Very often, they are a person trapped in a war with emptiness, shame, fragility, fear of irrelevance, and terror of real emotional exposure. That does not make the behavior harmless. It makes it tragic. And once you understand that, you stop being fooled by surface confidence. You start seeing the suffering hidden inside the performance. And maybe most important of all, you begin to protect your own peace with clearer eyes. Because understanding someone's pain does not mean you must stay close to the damage it creates.